Man, MAGA's Caroline Sunshine has seriously outdone herself this time. In this clip, we see Caroline Sunshine getting completely embarrassed over what is probably one of the dumbest comparisons when it comes to the scandal involving Max Miller, his ex-wife, and their 2-year-old daughter. Honestly, Caroline Sunshine has said some pretty ridiculous things on this show before, but nothing quite compares to what she says here. As usual, let's watch the clip first, and then I'm going to give you guys my thoughts. Let's get into it.
Max Miller tonight says that he's not going anywhere, the embattled congressman remaining defiant in the wake of abuse allegations by his ex-wife. And Republican leadership, they aren't asking him to step down, including Speaker Mike Johnson, who finally broke his silence on the scandal.
I think what Max is suggesting there is that I've been intellectually consistent, always have, since before I became Speaker, and certainly over the last almost 3 years. This applies equally to Republicans and Democrats. We don't take disciplinary action against members for allegations.
Will you tell him to drop out?
No, I will tell Max what I tell everyone. These are serious allegations. I mean, we have to allow this process to play out. It's just begun.
In an interview with CNN, Miller specifically cited Johnson's support in his reasoning for staying in the race.
My numbers in fundraising are strong. You know, Speaker Mike Johnson, everyone else, they're standing behind me. No one has told me to get off the ballot, and that's because they know I can win this seat and see this through, and that's what we're going to do.
You know, Joe, do you find Speaker Johnson's explanation to be defensible and convincing? Because, I mean, he's basically saying, well, this is about a process, and this is about whether or not people should be penalized. And I'm not sure that's the question that's being asked. It seems like what people are being asked is this the type of person that you think should be in your Congress?
It's two questions, right? It's, are you endorsing him for re-election, or do you think he should be still a member of the House of Representatives? And I think when the second question, Speaker Johnson has been fairly consistent. He's not demanded that any Democrat step down before the Ethics Committee has had an investigation. Now, that's one jurisdiction and venue where this whole case will be weighed. The other, which I don't think the Speaker has any control over, is the court of public opinion. We'll have the ethics investigation. We'll see what really happened. The Ethics Committee will make a recommendation. The court of public opinion is what Speaker Johnson has to worry about right now. And I just think that Max Miller is there's a problem there. This is a seat that shouldn't be going to the Democrats. And now, because of these alleged actions, it might very well do so. So Republicans are in a bind here. And it's going to be difficult to see who supports him. Look, I don't know the guy. But when you have his father-in-law and you have family members coming out with very credible and serious accusations, you have to really ask yourself what this person's all about.
And you have his daughter was interviewed by Child Services and said, Daddy, kill you. Can Johnson step up on anything? Like, isn't this the one thing that's kind of pretty straightforward? No, if you're a parent and the parents are at this table, there's two things you have to do. You have to love your child and sacrifice everything for your child, right? Money, time, sleep, to the point where you can't have a second child because you're too tired to do the thing that got you the first child, right? And so, no, not Abby. She's Superwoman. Superwoman. But the point is that when you put your career that far ahead of your child, when he says, "I'm a fighter and resilient," I want to vomit. I don't want a guy who's a fighter and resilient at the expense
That's literally
of his
the opposite.
child.
I mean, that is actually just so triggering to people. I just want to just read this just as a study in contrast. Here's Senator Katie Britt, also a Republican. She told Semaphore today, yes, Max Miller should resign. She said, my first concern is going to be his daughter, talking about Bernie Moreno's daughter and his granddaughter, their safety, their well-being. She says, when you watch those Miller interviews, if you have ever seen anyone in your life that has experienced abuse, they are eerie. But I stand with Bernie and supporting his daughter and granddaughter, and I hope that others will as well. That's not about politics. It's not about process. It's not about pushing anybody out. It's just actually saying, look, this is bad, and you, Max Miller, should do the right thing. Speaker Johnson is specifically not saying that.
No.
At all.
No. And like,
There's a double standard here. First of all, good for Senator Britt for saying that. I think we should just say that out loud because a lot of Republicans are afraid to speak out about what Max Miller has been accused of here, which, let's be really clear, is beating his ex-wife and hurting their child. The 3-year-old daughter had a broken collarbone. Okay, and they might not be able to prove that he did it, but when she's saying that Daddy's house is scary and we have these incidents happening, and he's admitted to some of them on tape, like he released his own tapes to try to disprove all of this, and inside the tapes he admitted to throwing scalding hot water on his ex-wife's chest. So he implicated himself in these crimes. A month ago, they were falling over themselves. Every single Republican influencer and politician were gleefully talking about the Graham Plattner accusations. They knew that they were bad. Okay.
And not on this network.
Respect. But there were a lot of people who were very excited to talk about it because they had Democrats in a bind, and Graham Plattner's got to go, and he's a scumbag and a bad human being. They don't want to talk about Max Miller. They don't want to talk about Donald Trump. They don't want to talk about Ryan Fournier, who was very close to Donald Trump in TPUSA, who's been accused of domestic abuse multiple times.
So if
I could just make this final case,
right after he's done.
There's a double standard here. Mike Johnson says we got to follow the process because it's one of his own. But when it's a Democrat, we don't follow the process. And at the end of the day, as much as the Democrats mishandled the way Graham Plattner, the entire situation there, we kicked him to the curb. And I think that's a better place to be, and I'd rather be a member of the party that actually polices its own.
After the 25th accusation,
it wasn't 25th, it was the second.
It was the third.
And listen, I agree that it was mishandled, but at least at the end of the day, we did the right thing.
If I accused you of backstage yanking my hair and calling me MAGA Barbie and saying, "Shut up, MAGA Barbie," is that accusation enough alone to say that you shouldn't be allowed to come back on the show?
No, but I mean, is that what you think Emily Moreno was doing?
Because it's an
allegation.
evidence
than that. There's a pattern with his.
There's a pattern with his allegation.
He's been accused of domestic
and I think
abuse.
that it shouldn't, but it's an accusation.
But how
so
many,
you didn't answer my
times
question.
are Republicans going to
If I
excuse
say I accuse you of anything,
but Caroline,
should you not come back on
that's
that
actually
alone?
not. That's an apples and oranges situation because in this case, it isn't just one allegation, and it isn't just his word against yours. It's over a year of history that's been documented in police reports and child protective services reports. So, other women prior to his ex-wife, two separate women, including one who talked about it publicly, who told the president and the first lady, President Trump and Melania Trump, about it at the time. That's apples and oranges. This is not just something happened in private, somebody did something to you, and it's just your word against it.
So let me ask this, because you mentioned Republicans coming after Graham Plattner. I did come on this network and say that Graham Plattner should play out in a court of law, not a court of public opinion. Have there been any charges pressed against Graham Plattner after he dropped out of that Senate race? I haven't seen any. Because the problem I have in this country is if somebody needs to drop out of a race for political office because of a serious, incredible sexual assault allegation, then we shouldn't stop there. Charges should be pressed against that person. We don't want him in the Senate. Great, they should be behind bars.
The problem is it's incredibly difficult to prove that stuff because it becomes a he said, she said in the situation.
Because if he had to drop out of a Senate race because he thought the allegation was still credited, if I'm her lawyer,
but it's multiple
allegations. But isn't the issue is he fit?
Let the voters decide.
Hold on just a second though. Are you going to call for Donald Trump to resign from office given that he's been found liable for sexual assaulting Eugene Carroll?
The issue is
I guess you're more consistent than your Republican.
At the end of the day, the issue is he fit for office for the voter? And I'm going to do something, and I'm going to admit to it. The guy's unhinged.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think he was probably unhinged regarding the underlying allegations. So a voter votes very often with their gut. And I'm standing in the booth, and I'm like, I don't know, man. There's something about this guy. There's something about it. Where there's smoke, there's fire. That's the practical reality of this.
And I think
can we make it political?
Well, yes. And let me play what Eric Erickson said about the political aspect of this for Republicans. Listen.
The Republicans could lose not just a House seat, they could lose their Senate seat, they could lose the governor's mansion in Ohio, all because of one man's frail, fragile ego keeping him in a race. The fact that Democrats were willing to move heaven and earth to force Graham Plattner out of the race in Maine and Republicans will not reciprocate in Ohio shows you how much worse at politics the Republicans are than the Democrats. The Democrats want to win. Do the Republicans want to win? If the Republicans want to win, they need to do everything possible to get Max Miller out of the race.
Okay.
100%
it doesn't
agree.
require you to 100% believe the allegations, but it's a fact that this man has a toxic relationship with his ex-wife and their child. That is going to be a problem for a lot of voters.
Yeah. And if Johnson, I'm sorry, as a Republican leader, you have to think about the politics here. And we're in a different era where partners, spouses, and even staffers are willing to go on the record about the misbehavior of these members of Congress. And Ohio is incredibly competitive at the governor's level with Vivek and Amy Acton, and for the Senate with John Husted and Sherrod Brown. I mean, this is really putting it in play, and Max Miller is going to be a drag on the ticket for Republicans. I'm just surprised that he won't just say something, anything.
Can I just add, though, I absolutely hate treating this like it's political football. Like, there's a little girl who's scared to go to her dad's house right now. We're all just treating it like it's power.
No, we're not treating it that way. We're drawing attention to all
I just
of
want
it.
to be clear. Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with you that for me, and probably for a lot of people, I can't get past the human beings that are a part of this. And even if politics weren't at play, you would say, if this is happening to you, it's time for you to step off the stage and deal with your home life. But that's not what the advice that he is getting from his leadership. So we'll see what happens. Next for us, corporate America.
So, if you guys have been following me on this channel for any amount of time, then you probably remember when the whole Graham Plattner situation was taking place. One of the things that I made very clear during that entire situation was that I believed he was a bad candidate because of the allegations and accusations that had come out against him. But my biggest frustration wasn't simply that people were criticizing him. My problem was the hypocrisy behind the way Republicans were handling the situation. Republicans came on this very show. They sat on this very network. Joe Belli, who is sitting there right now, was one of them. We watched them go on television and repeatedly say that Graham Plattner should leave the race because of the accusations that had been made against him. And I said at the time that my frustration was this: if the exact same situation happened on the other side, MAGA and Republicans would not be showing the same kind of energy that they were showing toward Graham Plattner. And now, here we are, barely a month later, and we have Max Miller in a situation that is extremely similar. Actually, you could argue that his situation is even worse because he's been accused of hurting his own 2-year-old child. His own 2-year-old daughter is involved in these allegations. And to me, that right there speaks absolute volumes. This is exactly what I was talking about back then. People are constantly telling Democrats that when Republicans go low, Democrats should take the high road. But the problem is that Republicans don't hold themselves to that same standard. They don't. And that's why this whole situation is so frustrating. It's not surprising at all that we're seeing this happen. Max Miller needs to drop out of this race. He absolutely does. And if Republicans refuse to pressure him to leave, then Democrats need to continue talking about this issue. They need to keep bringing it up again and again because voters deserve to know exactly what is happening here. Because this situation tells you a lot about where this party is right now. These are the same people who constantly talk about family values. They talk about the family being the foundation of America. They talk about protecting women and children and preserving the family. But when something like this happens, suddenly those principles don't seem to matter as much. And then you have Max Miller pointing to Donald Trump as somebody who politician, then protecting the woman. And now you've got a little girl caught in the middle of all of this, and somehow people still want to turn it into nothing more than another political argument. That's exactly why Caroline Sunshine's comparison was so incredibly stupid. You cannot compare a random accusation between two adults to a situation involving multiple allegations, a history that has reportedly been documented, police reports, child protective services, and a young child who is reportedly afraid to go to her father's house. Those situations are not the same. They aren't even close. When you're talking about a 2-year-old child who is scared to go to her father's house, that alone should make people stop and seriously question what is happening. You can't just dismiss something like that because the person involved happens to be a Republican. And that's the part that bothers me the most. If these people were actually serious about the principles they claim to believe in, then the political party wouldn't matter. The name wouldn't matter. The position wouldn't matter. You would simply look at the allegations and say, this needs to be taken seriously. But instead, we're watching Republicans defend one of their own while demanding that Democrats hold their own people accountable. That's the double standard. That's the hypocrisy. And Caroline Sunshine's attempt to compare this situation to something completely different only makes that hypocrisy even more obvious. So I want to know what you guys think about this entire exchange. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you think Caroline Sunshine's comparison was fair, or do you think she completely missed the point? And as usual, do the normal stuff. Give the video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and continue supporting the channel. I genuinely appreciate every single one of you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next clip.